Hi everybody, this is going to be an English for people that are learning English. Obviously English is my first language and I want to see if I can help you out in whatever way I can. So I have 5 tips and I'm going to share them with you now. The first one is I recommend that you focus on vocabulary and grammar more than you focus on slang words and everyday expressions. Obviously, you know, when you're learning a language, you have to choose how you're going to spend your time because you can't learn everything and it takes a lot of time to master the language. So I think in the initial stages, it's much more efficient to focus on the core vocabulary and the main rules of the language, because if you just focus on slang, it's really not going to help you master the language and help you get to the next level. The other thing is that slang varies a lot from one country to the next. So the slang that is spoken in Australia is very different from the slang that's spoken in America and in England. So you really have to be mindful of that. My second point is that I think pronunciation is much more important than your accent. Everybody has an accent. You know, I have an accent, people that live in America have an accent, people that speak English in England have a different accent. So I really don't think you need to worry about copying a particular accent. What is more important is that you pronounce words in the correct way. And there are many different ways of pronouncing the same word and people are still going to understand you. So I think put more attention on the pronunciation and less attention on the type of accent that you have and worrying about that. And a lot of people think that they need to sound American or they need to have a British accent. It's really not necessary. I live in New York and I hear people speaking English with a million different types of accents and I understand them all. So it's really not a problem. My third point and my third recommendation is to be very wary of making direct translations from the primary language to English, because sometimes these translations don't always work. And you need to be mindful of that. And I'm not saying that translating is a bad thing, because, you know, 70 to 80% of time direct translations will work and they'll be fine. But there'll be other instances in which they won't work at all. For example, I'm learning Spanish and there are some things which do not translate well from Spanish to English, and the same is true from English to Spanish. Now some examples in Spanish we say hacer preguntas, which in English translates to ask questions, but the direct translation de hacer preguntas is to make questions. That doesn't make sense in English. Another example is in Spanish, you would say, to say I'm 25 years old, you say tengo 25 años. The direct translation of that is I have 25 years. That, again, it's not what we say in English. There are other words which you think might mean the same thing, but they don't. For example, in Spanish, actualmente isn't the same as actually in English, it has a different meaning. And another example is constipado doesn't equal constipated. So these are things that you need to be mindful of when you're translating from one language to another. My fourth point is that it's very important to pay attention to each aspect of the language in terms of reading, writing, listening and speaking, because all of them are important and all of them matter. And ultimately, if you want to become proficient in the language, you have to be able to master all of them. Obviously, speaking is very important, and perhaps it's the most important because that's where, you know, where your language skills are tested the most. But ultimately, you need to be able to perform well in each of the other 3 domains. And, you know, if you improve your reading, it's going to improve your writing. And if you improve your listening, it's going to improve your speaking. So again, be mindful of all of these 4 things when you're studying English, and be sure to expose yourself to different types of learning techniques which challenge you in each of these 4 areas. My 5th point is that it's very important to expose yourself to native speakers in all contexts. You really want to get as much contact with the language that you can get. So this means watching videos in English, watching movies in English, reading newspapers, reading articles, reading magazines in English, and obviously speaking with native speakers face to face or on Skype or whatever way you can, because the more contact you have with the language, the better that you will become at understanding it, and it will also provide you with many opportunities in which you can practice your use of the language. And ultimately, you know, if you really want to master English, you have to practice it, you have to use it on a daily basis. So these are my 5 tips. I hope you find them useful. They're just 5 things that came to mind. It's not an exhaustive list, and I could come up with a number more, perhaps 15 more. And this is where I'm going to leave it. If you want to see any more of my videos, you can check them out on YouTube. It's youtube.com/El Australiano. Thanks.